For generations, the Israelites lived under the crushing weight of Egyptian bondage. They built cities with their bare hands, laid stone upon stone under a scorching sun, and watched their children grow up knowing nothing but servitude. Pharaoh, the most powerful ruler on earth, held them in his grip, not just physically, but spiritually. He wanted them to believe that freedom was not something meant for them, that their suffering was permanent, that their God had forgotten them. But deep within the hearts of a people worn down by whips and chains, a quiet fire still burned, a belief that one day someone would come, one day something would change. And that change came in the form of a man who had lived two lives. A prince raised in the palace of the very empire that enslaved his people, and a shepherd who heard the voice of God speaking from a burning bush that refused to turn to ash. Moses did not see himself as a deliverer. He stuttered. He doubted. He asked God to send someone else. But God does not always call the qualified. He qualifies the called. And so Moses stood before Pharaoh, not with an army, not with gold, but with a staff and a message. "Let my people go." Pharaoh refused. Again and again he refused. And so the plagues came, 10 devastating acts of divine power that turned the Nile to blood, filled the land with locusts, and darkened the sky for 3 days. Each plague was not merely a natural disaster. Each one was a direct confrontation with an Egyptian god, a declaration that the God of Israel was supreme above all. Still, Pharaoh hardened his heart. It was not until the final plague, the death of every firstborn in Egypt, that the walls of his pride finally crumbled. In grief and terror, he released the Israelites. Hundreds of thousands of men, women, and children poured out of Egypt, carrying whatever they could hold. They moved quickly, because freedom, when it finally arrives, does not wait. They were heading toward a promised land they had never seen, guided by a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. For the first time in 400 years, they walked as free people. But freedom, as they were about to discover, does not come without a final test. Pharaoh changed his mind. The grief faded and pride returned. He gathered his finest chariots, 600 of them, and his most elite soldiers, and he pursued the Israelites with everything Egypt had. The people looked ahead and saw the Red Sea, vast and impassable. They looked behind and saw the dust rising from Pharaoh's approaching army. Panic set in. They cried out to Moses, asking why he had brought them out here to die. This is the moment the story truly begins. Not when the chains broke, but when the sea stood in the way. Moses raised his staff over the water, and the sea split. A wall of water rose on the left, a wall of water rose on the right, and between them, a path of dry ground stretched forward into the unknown. The Israelites walked through, every man, every woman, every child, on ground that had been the bottom of a sea just moments before. When the Egyptian army followed, the waters returned. The most powerful military force in the ancient world was swallowed by the very sea that had just delivered an enslaved people to freedom. The lesson written into this moment is not simply about miracles. It is about what happens when human courage meets divine power. The Israelites did not part the sea. They walked toward it. They took the step. And God did what only God could do. Freedom is rarely handed over without resistance. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is moving forward when every visible option says turn back. The story of Moses and the Red Sea endures across thousands of years because it speaks to something universal. Every person, at some point, stands at the edge of their own impossible sea, wondering if the path will open. The answer, this story insists, is to lift your staff and keep walking.